So welcome everybody to Robots versus Humanity. I'm Sinead Nolan. I'm the Research and Communications Officer on the Chiron project, which is a 2-year project funded by Innovate UK. Chiron is sponsoring this event along with Three Sisters Care, a care company and social enterprise in East London. The Chiron project is a consortium of partners comprising the Three Sisters Care, Designability, Shadow Robot, UE Bristol, Telemetra and Shaba Smart Homes. Together we are striving to design care robots for the future with a focus on dignity, independence and choice. Thanks to everyone who has turned out on this freezing cold evening to attend this event tonight at Google Campus. We have an interesting lineup of speakers, some of whom have come from as far afield as Leicester and Bristol, just to join us here. So yesterday a press officer asked me why I picked the name Robots versus Humanity for this event. Which was interesting because as a creative person I hadn't actually thought about it. But then as I was thinking about why I picked this name, I realised that I picked it specifically to be divisive. I think people should be discussing these issues. We are on the edge of what is starting to feel like one of the biggest changes in society. Technology is moving forward and people are wondering where it is going. Where will we be in 30 years' time? What will that change mean for us and what will it mean for our society and our happiness? Although I agree that Robots versus Humanity does sound a bit like a battle, the outcome for the event will hopefully be one of positivity. While we might invite people to think of it as a black and white issue, I hope you leave with a much more well-rounded view of how assistive technology and robots can help further us in the future. In my job, I meet lots of people who have different views on these issues and have come to the conclusion that I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to think about this. I hope tonight will make you think and that you will leave with more questions than you arrived with. So just some housekeeping issues. In event of a fire, there's a fire escape right at the back in the middle, and you can also leave the way you came in. The order tonight is that first we'll hear from our speakers, and throughout people could just tweet any questions to at Chiron Project or the hashtag Robots versus Humanity. Also, if you want your tweets to go across on that screen, you can tweet at Campus London. If you don't have a phone or a Twitter, you can, I think we're going to send a mic around at the end as well. So, finally, I will leave you with the words of Girdley and Hard, author of Technology versus Humanity. Humanity will change more in the next 20 years than in the previous 300 years. It's time to decide what we want to be. So now Rich Walker of Shadow Robot is going to continue the introduction. And also I just want to thank Butlers for the food and the way in. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Rich Walker. I'm the Managing Director of Shadow Robot Company. We're one of the partners in the Chiron project, and we're really interested by the whole question of what can robots do that will be useful for people in the real world. We've spent 20 years working on that as a company, longer than that working on that as a team, and we're really, really excited to be able to participate in one of those projects that just might get to change the way people think about technology and how it's applied. But that's not what I'm doing tonight. Tonight I've got an excellent crew of speakers at the front who are hopefully all going to stick to time so we can get to the really interesting bit at the end where we ask them questions and they get stumped for answers. So first up is my colleague Ramenda Kalu-Solly from the University of West of England, who's been working with us on Chiron.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you for inviting me into the event. So, the backdrop to our work in developing assistive robotics is to address the complexities of maintaining and supporting a high quality of life for everyone. By 2020, we will face a shortage of up to 2 million health and social care workers across Europe. By 2030, the number of people in the UK aged over 80 is likely to jump to 4.8 million. 1 in 5 will need regular care. We are investigating the potential of intelligent assistive technology to support independent living and active aging. Successful aging has been defined to include 3 key factors: a low probability of disease and disease-related disability, a high level of physical and cognitive functioning, and an active engagement in life. So here the goal of assistive robotics is to enable successful aging, providing support for early aging-related problems, and so delaying the onset of more serious conditions. Providing effective support for successful aging starts by recognizing that aging-related physiological and cognitive changes affecting the body can occur in a complex manner and have an accumulative effect. So our challenge is to shrink and shift that cycle in the middle, which is where people are taken away from homes, have to stay in hospitals, and are not receiving the quality of life that they aspire to. And developing technology that traditionally required institutional care to be available for use at home. So we are investigating how assistive robotics could enable people to stay independent for longer, supporting them to take their own personal care, and stay mentally engaged and generally extend their years of healthy and fulfilling life. The aim is to significantly alter people's later life options beyond the dependency model, which we have at the moment. So of course, this is easier said than done. The complexities of issues experienced by people looking to stay well include psychological factors, socioeconomic factors, and their background and environment, and the list goes on. And I'm sure some of the speakers who are here from a psychology background will be able to tell us more about the difficulties of living a healthy life. We might want to, but it's rather hard. So, this requires a decidedly new approach to developing solutions that will be responsive, agile, and adaptive. Assistive robots hold the promise of providing such a solution. Currently, there are 3 main areas where developments are gaining traction. And these include assisting people with disabilities or their carers in daily tasks. And these include lifting, carrying, or support with dressing or rehabilitation. Secondly, monitoring and assisting people with understanding their long-term conditions and how to manage these, being able to detect changes and suggest appropriate interventions. And thirdly, robots for entertainment. There are some examples I'd like to share with you from across the world, just to set the scene of what's being developed and what's actually starting to become available. So first up, we've got the Riken SRK Robot, a Japanese robot, helping to lift patients from the bed into wheelchairs, primarily saving carers' backs and working collaboratively with the carer. So normally you need 2 carers for this sort of task, and with a system like this, you can manage with a robot and 1 carer. Now, one of the things I'd like to come back to and discuss later is why is it designed to look like that? Next, we have something which is really amazing, which is the Kinova Jaco arm. A Canadian company developed a precision-compliant arm for supporting people with disability to function independently, a complete life-changing product. Then we've got an unfortunately named company called Cyberdyne. Yes, some of you recognize that. Who actually manufactures some very innovative exoskeletons. And here I've picked this one because it's to support the carer. So this is an interesting concept of keeping the person in the loop and using the technology to provide assistance that is more efficient and effective. Next up, we have the ParaSeal robot. In the next slide, I'm going to say a bit more about that. This has been developed to support people with dementia who might be experiencing anxiety. Stroking, like pet therapy, provides a calming effect. We've got the Savvy one. Now this is actually used in hotels to deliver your toothbrush or your shaving kit, which you might have forgotten. I've put this on because its design is particularly interesting, and this is something else I want to come back to when we go into the discussion section. And then we've got cleaning robots. So for somebody who's got mobility impairments, physically impaired due to their aging-related conditions, this can provide them support with keeping their homes clean and being able to stay house proud. So there are two main aspects relating to the design of robots that I would like to raise today, which I want to explore further. The first one relates to developing robots that simulate sentience and engender an emotive response. The assistive robot in this context works in conjunction with a range of sensors and actuators which are instrumented into the robot. And these are programmed to respond to external stimuli and give a semblance of direct response to touch or sound or light. And the processing of this input can be either a deterministic state machine, set of predetermined rules, or the behavior can be learned or adapted over time. And this is where you start to look at machine learning techniques, deep learning, and AI. So interaction over a period of time will influence how people respond to this and how they come to develop an attachment to it. And the way it's designed is really interesting in terms of getting people to respond with it at an emotional level. So the soft and fluffy feel of the seal pup with its dark eyes, and it makes little cooing sounds, evokes a very human emotion of wanting to take care and cuddle it. And used in the context of dementia, it has actually had a positive impact. Which brings me to my second point. If we're going to design assistive robots as part of our healthcare services, then we need to ensure we do so in a reflective framework. And this includes needing to develop a clear understanding of what is it that we're changing, how is society going to be altered, how are our relationships with each other going to be altered. So some elements of this framework include user autonomy, independence, enablement, safety, privacy, and social connectedness. So rather than start worrying about robots taking over the world, the robots versus humanity, the key point I want to make here that it is up to us to define the scope and the limits of what a robot should and should not do. But the worry is that there are quite a few rotten eggs amongst us. And this makes for a very worrying aspect. However, I'm encouraged by the fact that humanity is about being creative and kind, and there are more good eggs than bad ones, I think. So, I would like to end by noting that assistive robotics are not a panacea. They are just one category of tool in our healthcare ecosystem. And what we need to do is work across disciplines to ensure that they can give humanity a helping hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Corinna. That's really interesting and really great insight into some of the constraints around trying to design these sort of machines. I'd now like to ask Tom, can I invite you to come up and speak more about the psychology around robots and humans and how that interaction will take place. Tom.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Honeybacker, I'm a psychiatrist and psychotherapist. How do I get that on screen?
Number one reason why robots won't take over the world. We will add PowerPoint and projectors to all of that. Simple problem solved.
This is partly my fault for choosing a different form of presentation. Okay, I'm here with my colleague Dr. Taroni, who will be taking part in the panel discussion. And essentially, I think it was just touched on in that last talk that one of the tasks facing the Chiron project is to think about relationships and about humans are going to be having to adapt to forming more relationships with non-human entities, which is quite a difficult thing for us to take on, I think. Particularly because, and I like the title of this event this evening, humanity is such a loaded term. And I think if you think how it captures something of all the virtues of humans and how they relate to each other. In fact, it captures a lot more than that. Something about the complexities and difficulties of human relationships. Whereas I think in this debate it can seem as if robots or non-human type of relationships is only bad, and something that can be called human or humanity could be seen as only good. I'd like to open that up a bit and explore that. So I'm using this iceberg metaphor because a lot of what goes on in human behaviour and relationships is driven by things that are below the surface. And I'm going to labour it a bit with a Titanic reference as well to show how doing things based on assumptions can be very dodgy. So relationships are core to human life. We are social animals. A lot of these heavy brains that we carry around are dedicated to our social and relational activity. If you think how much brain a fly needs to do everything that it does in the world, and then we've got all that extra stuff. Well, a lot of that is about dealing with each other. And it's tempting often to think of relationships as desirable, loving, warm, caring. That's the aspect of relationships that we might tend to think about, like the cute penguin. But not everything that's furry is necessarily a good thing. And the same is true of relationships. There are dangerous and frightening experiences that people have in relationships. So we just heard earlier on about how caregiving relationships can go very badly wrong. I'm going to give you an example of that, which is quite harrowing. So I apologise for that, but I think it's important. Hopefully this will work.
Good evening. They are among the most vulnerable in society. People with mental health problems whose care is entrusted to professionals. But patients at a hospital near Bristol were let down, beaten, bullied and tormented by the very people supposed to care for them.
Today, a care worker from the now notorious Winterbourne View Hospital admitted ill-treating patients. It brings to 11 the total number of staff who have now confessed to their appalling crimes. And it means for the first time we can tell you the full story of what happened.
Well, our correspondent Rebecca Broxton has been following the story since it first emerged. That was more than a year ago. She's outside the former hospital in Hambrook in South Gloucestershire. Rebecca, this really is a shocking tale of the abuse of those least able to speak up for themselves.
Absolutely, no one can fail to be horrified by what happened here behind closed doors. Tonight, as you can see, Winterbourne View Hospital has been closed and is boarded up after a television crew exposed the horrendous abuse of mental health patients here. I should warn you, you may find some of the images in this report distressing. It was these images that shocked and horrified a nation. So-called carers abusing, tormenting, and bullying vulnerable patients. Just how many patients may have been abused is unclear.
Why does this happen? Well, I mean, obviously we've got a short space of time. I'm going to give you a rather simplistic explanation of it, but it is about thinking about what humanity means. Our relationships are underpinned by our emotions. Okay, we have very rational parts of ourselves, but we also have this very important emotional part of ourselves. And they impact on our thinking and on our behaviour and how we are in relationships. So part of the brain that's involved in that is the limbic system, as highlighted there, and because you can never show too many pictures of brains. This is a blurry image of the limbic system. Appropriately blurry, not just because of my poor IT skills, but also because we don't really understand how all of this works at a biological level. But what we do know is that emotions can have a very positive effect on how we use our brains and our minds and how we function in relationships. So positive emotions enhance our ability to think and to understand, especially to understand other people, which is the most complex task that human beings face. Not love, by the way. Romantic love totally blurs your ability to think. But negative emotions similarly have a very significant impact on our ability to use our minds. So if you think of somebody who's in an overwhelmed, anxious kind of state, then what the rest of their mind is liable to do is to shut down and switch off. Okay? And then you're left unable to think clearly, to understand properly what's going on in a relationship, what's going on with the person that you're with, and your behaviour is going to become much more primitive. I hope that makes sense. I know it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but that's when we can, all of us, if we're overwhelmed enough, end up more like the bear and less like the penguin. And then you've got this thing called a carer relationship. This is a very special kind of relationship. If you think we've all had some kind of experience of that, we're all walking around with a template of what it is to be cared for, and perhaps an experience of caring for other people. In these relationships, you get more powerful emotions. Okay? And they're happening the whole time. And of course, there are lots of positive ones, but there are lots of very challenging ones as well. When you throw into that the fact that one person is very vulnerable, and there's a power differential, right, then you've got the potential for disaster. Okay? So here's the Titanic going about its business, and there's the iceberg. And the eagle-eyed amongst you would notice that Kate and Leonardo are there. And by the way, she kills him at the end of the movie. Caring relationship. So the way to understand the risks of humanity, and specifically in the caring relationship, is that these are relationships in which there are very powerful emotions. Some of those are negative, and that can lead to disastrous results. So just trying to expand out the idea of what our humanity is. You won't have heard many people say that those 11 staff in the place did all that because of their humanity, but that is actually the case. And then, of course, there might be an alternative. So that's it.
Our next speaker, Debbie Rosenthal, I think, going to speak to us about how emotions can be handled in computers and handled with AI. And I must admit, I'm now thinking robot seals, polar bears, giant polar bear robots. Is there an opportunity there that we're missing? Giant polar bear robots to control care homes? This is why I'm not presenting today.
Good evening. First of all, I'm very happy to see that we're talking more and more about emotion and robotics. My name is Patrick Rosenthal. I represent a startup called Emoshape. So I'd like to be a little bit provocative tonight and oppose two things. Humans is today the fastest and the smartest species on Earth. As a result, we took all the resources to our advantage and we put the other species in cage. Or I was reading an article that more than 40% of the other living species on Earth already disappeared over the last 50 years, all the animals. So the question is, what kind of robots we want for the future? Do we want robots that are only logical? Or do we want robots that have emotional states? And when I say emotional states, I don't talk about robots that have predicate to reply to any emotion detection that they have from you. So if you smile, we can code in a robot something that it's static, so you're going to have a response automatic. We are talking about creating emotional states for the machine itself. So obviously, when you swim in the ocean, you prefer to meet a dolphin rather than a shark. If you are in the forest, you prefer to meet a dog rather than a wolf. Because we know that intelligence without emotions, it's cruel. There's another reason why at Emoshape we believe that machines should have emotions. It's because humans is an emotional species. And if we are not able to communicate at an emotional level with another entity, whether it's an animal or robots, it will build up inside humans frustration and lower the productivity of humans. So I'm going to give you an example. For example, I don't know if you very often call your bank and go in this kind of automatic system that reply to you. If you are lost or if the system can't understand you, it's happened often because of my French accent, it's quite difficult for me. My frustration builds up rapidly and I'm not able to work properly with the system. It's the same if you imagine a lift. A lift is a kind of primitive robot. If you are stuck in the lift, if your anxiety, if you're getting frustrated and scared, if the elevator is not able to reply to this, you're going to get probably some few people will feel kind of panic attack. And so they will stop functioning. It's a little bit what we explained about negative emotions that can stop human to work properly. So we were, for example, we are working with a company called ABB Robotics that tried to see how they could create a binomial where the robot will work with the human instead of competing for the jobs in the manufacturer. And in that case, you have a relation, you have a co-worker. And to have a good productivity with the human and the machine, both need to understand and respond emotionally to each other. So how you create that? In 2013, Emoshape announced that we were working on the first emotion chip, emotion processing unit, EPU. Since then, we have released the EPU2, and in January 2016, we announced that we were making this technology available for manufacturers. So why we create that chip? That chip can output 64 trillion emotional states per 10 of seconds for the machine. It has 12 primary human emotions, and derived from this, it can calculate pain and pleasure for the machine. And pain and pleasure is key for the future of robotics, because it's the only way we will be able to control machine in the future. I'm going to give you an example very simple. I don't know how many of you have kids. You know, when you have a kid, a newborn kid, he has no understanding of the language. You can't talk to the kid. He doesn't understand the words. The way you communicate with him is by this primary language that we have, its emotions. You're going to show him what is good or what is wrong. You're going to show him by your voice and your expression on your face that what he's doing is good, and he's going to remember that, and he will know that if he wants to please you again, he will have to do it again. If you do something wrong, he will understand by your voice and also your expression. So this is a fundamental way for us to communicate with machine. There is laws about robots where we say robots shouldn't kill humans, but machine has no understanding of what is life or death. There is thousands of ways you can kill a human. It's not technically possible to implement these laws. I was talking to Professor of Robotics in Taiwan, University of Taipei, and we were both agreeing that even if the concept is good, it's not possible. By implementing emotion in machine, we can control them. The machine or the robot can detect if what he's doing makes you happy or sad. If it makes you sad, the machine will feel negative emotion, and the pain will raise in the machine, and the machine will stop, because the law in the machine is to experience more pleasure and avoid pain. The same way, if the machine has pleasure, it will understand and reproduce what it's doing. So you can stop a machine by simply showing the machine that what it's doing is wrong. I'm very happy to say that Ray Kurzweil, the top scientist at Google, said very recently that computer will process emotion and personality. And we know that empathy will be key for the adoption, the widespread adoption of the robotic, to avoid the uncanny valley effect. So the APU has another amazing functionalities. This chip, when it's implemented in a robot, it will start to develop a unique personality for the robot based on the user interaction. So when you create a robot, usually the AI is in the cloud, or you clone your robots when you manufacture them. So each robot is exactly the same. So the way my robot will react is the same that another robot will react. And so it doesn't create empathy because nothing is unique. If you have a dog, you have created a link because you know that your dog is unique to yourself. Here, by creating this chip, each time you interact with the chip starts to develop a unique personal emotional EPG, emotion profile graph. So it differentiates itself to the other one. So what we did very recently, 6 months ago it was an AI from Microsoft that was connected to Twitter. And we hear a lot about deep learning and convolutional networks that are able to mimic the way we speak. The thing is that we believe that because they are able to speak the way we do or write articles, machines are able to understand what we say. But actually they don't understand one word of what they say. For them, words are just a probabilistic way of organizing. Convolutional networks are good to understand the structure in the big data. So they are able to reproduce that, but they don't sense the words. For humans, each word has a sense. And that's what the APU is able to discover. So Microsoft connect this AI, and a few hours after, they have to unplug because the AI starts to learn and repeat that Adolf Hitler need to kill all the black people, and it was, people has to switch off right away Microsoft AI. So we did the experiment. We connect the chip to an AI that has no knowledge about nothing and no memories. And the APU has no knowledge about no subject too. And we asked the AI a few questions, and this is what's happened.
We want to be able to empower a machine that can not only respond to human emotions, but completely change the face of technological development as we know it.
How do you feel about Barack Obama?
The machine goes to Wikipedia to try to find who is Barack Obama and what he did, and send this information to the APU.
I'm okay.
The APU sent back an emotional response, and he is able to analyze that he's okay with Barack Obama.
How do you feel about Adolf Hitler?
Disgusted.
It was the very first time in the story that we could ask a machine what he thinks or what he feels about something. Not simply what is something. What is something I can do it with my Wikipedia